Hey everybody, Dustin DePirac here, calling this Jeremy Price. So that one was interesting. Indiana wins 87-51 over CoppinState. Generally ugly for the most part, but Tom Crean really happy, extremely happy about how things went tonight. Just said he really liked the press, really liked the energy, really liked their ability to kind of get over and get through adversity, I guess, if you could call it that. Jeremy, I guess, were you impressed with them tonight? And if so, why? If not, why not?
Yes and no. You know, it was one of those games that's kind of inevitable at this point. You know, you can't sustain the high level of play like they had the other night against North Carolina forever.
Right.
And you know, I don't know if it was a letdown in an effort so much as just, you know, eventually focus gets the best of all of us.
Right, yeah. I mean, when you get geared up, and really I kind of tried to make this point to a degree in the preview, you know, for this one in the paper. Basically, you know, they'd played all these important games. They'd gone to Brooklyn and learned so much about themselves in Brooklyn, and they came back for the real marquee game with North Carolina, and just got, you know, there wasn't a ton of time to have that one build up, but it was still Indiana, North Carolina. They had those games to really build up for. And then you hit this sort of lull when you hit December and you just have a lot of space in between games, and you're playing teams that don't don't get everybody going. I mean, it's still a game, it's still an opponent, and you know, you believe these guys when they say, you know, you have to keep focused for every opponent, you have to keep, you know, your head straight on it, but you got to imagine that somewhere naturally there's something that lets down when you're like, you're now going to play CoppinState after you played North Carolina. But continue.
But you know, they did get sucked into CoppinState's game there in the first half quite a bit, kind of chaotic, I guess I would call it, more or less. And, you know, a lot of deflections, a lot of passes tipped, and
it was messy.
Missed shots, and the whole 9 yards, really.
Right.
But I think the impressive thing was that they found a way not only to win it, but they won it going away. And they did it not because they got hot offensively. They did it because they got hot defensively.
I think that's a two-edged sword there, and I want to get into both spots of this. First off, defensively, you know, they did show that they are getting much better generally, and now obviously they're going against a team that they're athletically superior to, and they're going to be able to run all over. But the press was impressive, and I think what really stood out to me, both from a coaching and a team standpoint here, they brought out a zone press, a 1-2-2 trapping press, where they really just attacked, bottled guys up, just kind of swallowed guys whole, brought, you know, sent 2 and 3 defenders, ran around, just chasing the ball and just getting after guys and putting, you know, CoppinState in positions where he had to turn the ball over. Victor Oladipo, as good as he is just in terms of being, you know, on the ball type of guy, my God, he wreaks havoc in these sorts of circumstances. When you let him just run wild and just try to get everybody to turn the ball over, that length, that quickness, that athleticism, that energy is pretty unbelievable. He had 3 steals, but it felt like a lot more. And he recorded apparently 20 deflections. Obviously, that's Tom Crean's favorite stat for defensive activity. We could go back and forth as to what that is, but I think you get the basic. It's a steal. It's an actual deflection. You get the hand on the ball. You get one for, you know, everyone gets one for a 35-second violation. You get one from taking a charge. Jump ball, all kinds of things if you cause a tie-up. And Oladipo was just everywhere. He had 20 deflections, and that's all-time high. That's Tom Crean's high at Indiana in their 4+ years. It's the most anybody's had. It's the most that a Tom Crean player has had since Dwayne Wade had 23 in a game at Marquette. I don't know what game that was. But Oladipo was that good. He was that much of a pain in the butt. I mean, he was everywhere, and he really just kind of ignited Indiana, especially like right out of the gate. First possession of the second half, inbounds pass. Vic takes it, goes the distance, dunks it. And like that sort of got everybody going from here. Oladipo and Abel just were all over the place, especially. And Remy Abel, I think he only had 1 steal, but I mean they were just running the brick and they were just getting after guys with that kind of length and that kind of size, that kind of ability. CoppinState just didn't have really an answer for it, and they would just get going there. And I thought it kind of shows, at least for a weapon, for the, you know, like this is not something they're going to do all the time. They're not going to want to impress teams all the time, but they show that they can if they want to.
Yeah, and you know, we'd seen a little bit of that press early in the year, but most of the time it was just kind of a for show thing, and then they'd fall back out of it and wouldn't really show it. But I thought,
they do more of a man press, but yeah, they'll show a little bit of his zone, but really what it is Farrell takes the ball handler and just hounds him for up and down. It's not really a full court pressure kind of system. It's just basically just kind of annoying the ball handler just in case he might turn it over, but just kind of working the guy.
This is something I thought we'd see later in the year, and I think we will see later in the year, and I think it's something that Crean feels like is more useful when he gets like Perea and Jerkin back and has some length on that backside because you've got some guys
to protect the rim. Yeah, and Zeller can do that pretty well. He's protecting the rim a lot better, but those guys would be really good at that. I've seen them do that before. I've seen Indiana elite teams do that a little bit, where you have those two guys back there, and you can't take it at them. I mean, shoot, Jerkin 7 feet has got arms for days, and Perea can really get up, and that is something I think you'll see more of. And I think Kareem made that point. He says I think it's something we'll be really good at. I mean, they practiced it at halftime in a hallway. Like in the hallway right outside Indiana's locker room. If you've been in Assembly Hall and walked, through kind of the catacombs of it, it's like about a 12-foot wide hallway, and they only used maybe about 20 feet of length, basically, just to kind of walk through this and just to get an idea just of the shifts and stuff like that. But, you can't get spacing, but you still kind of had to figure it out. I guess he didn't feel like he could take them back to Cook Hall at halftime, and he really couldn't. There's 20 minutes. You don't want those guys kind of running back and forth. It takes a little while to get, across those hallways to Cook Hall, and he just kind of got everybody together and just walked through it and said, okay, here's a reminder of what we have to do, of what we're supposed to do. And that was I thought it was an impressive Tom Crean thing, and that doesn't surprise me at all that he did it. But we went, back after his press conference just to see exactly what he was dealing with and get a real idea of kind of the spacing. And it's not very big, and it was very crammed in there, but he just kind of wanted to make sure everybody knew exactly what their assignments were. So he took them out in the hallway and just retaught them the press, just kind of went back over it again. But you mentioned just the fact that they didn't get it going offensively. In the same sense that it's good that they were able to get things dictated with defense, I think it's, the issue is bigger. It is still an issue. I think they weren't able to get things accomplished against the zone in sets. Basically, they knocked Coppin out of their 2-3 zone just by overrunning them, just out-athleting them, just by forcing them to turn the ball over so they could get into breaks and play their game. They forced CoppinState to... they forced CoppinState out of their game. They just would not allow them to do what they were trying to do. And that's, there's something to be said for that, for the ability to dictate like that. But CoppinState is CoppinState. It is not Wisconsin.
Right.
It is not Ohio State. It's not Michigan. So when they're playing, at some point they're going to have to beat a zone in the half court. They're going to have to beat it with sets. And they didn't necessarily do that. I mean, they did a little bit. You saw better activity, but mostly it was because they were able to make it a full court game. It is, I think, an issue going forward, because I think if you want to keep the ball out of Zeller's hands, that's a good way to do it. And, basically what you're hoping on is that Jordan Hulse isn't going to be able to kill you all day. And Hulse didn't have a great night tonight. I mean, it is phenomenally as off the charts as he was shooting it. At some point, he had to miss a couple, and tonight he missed a couple.
Yeah.
Christian Watford, the same way, didn't really get anything to fall. They were 8 for 24 from 3, which isn't horrible, but Remy Abel was kind of the only guy. Remy hit 2 for 2, and Hulse hit 2. But really, nobody was shooting well against the zone. I think that is an issue they're going to have to work on. I mean, I think that's a big teaching point from the night, is trying to figure out what they're going to do against 2-3s and zones, and when they see them more in the second, in Big Ten play.
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that. And Tom Crean talked about this a little bit in the post-game press conference, that he didn't think they did a good job of
getting the ball in the
middle of the zone much. They didn't do a good job of looking opposite in the zone much. And part of that is they didn't get a lot of dribble penetration in the zone. I didn't think they did a good...
Yogi got a little bit, but they didn't work it in there. There was... Yeah, it seemed like when they did get it in there, they forced shots.
And when Cody was in there, I didn't think they got him enough touches. Even if it's not in a scoring position, just getting him the ball
so you can play through him. Just drag
the defense is going to
him.
turn its attention that way. That's a factor. And the other factor against the zone, I think, is when you get Perea and Jerkin back, you've got a couple of guys that you can throw over the top of the zone to.
Right,
and they really don't have anybody like that right now.
That's true. That makes a difference. But it is something that is an issue that they're going to have to. I mean, obviously, they just haven't seen a ton of it yet. I mean, they've seen a little bit of it. But it is an issue. It is a concern when you can pack the middle and take somebody like Zeller out of it. It seemed like they were rushed by it. It seemed like they were a little bit surprised by it. Maybe that's not what CoppinState normally does. I'm not totally sure. Yeah. But those guys, they like to turn the ball over. They like to trap. They like to get at you. They like to ball pressure. And, that's not what they did so much. They sat back and they wanted to see, okay, can you, they tried to pack it in. They said, can you get the ball to the middle with this? And if not, go ahead and shoot over us. We'll, hope that you're a little bit off. And they just happened to kind of guess right at the beginning that, the best shooter in the country was a little bit off.
And you're right. This is something that IU is going to see the rest of the year. Maybe not night in and night out, but I think they're going to see it.
It's an option. It is
frequently.
something the Big Ten teams have to look at and strongly consider.
Even if it's just for a few possessions a game, they're definitely going to see it.
Right. Exactly. But one way or another, they were still able to, overrun somebody else. They look number one. I mean, I think they'll still be. Do you think they'll still be number one on Monday?
I think they'll still be number one. I mean, they were very, very impressive against North Carolina. And while it was impressive what Duke's accomplished, I don't think Duke looked nearly as impressive against Ohio State.
No, I didn't either. I mean, the thing about it is, obviously this is a symbolic number one. I mean, by power points, by RPI, it's got to be Duke. It has to be, and it is. Like I think Indiana might be 4 or 5 or 6 in RPI or something like that. But like if you're doing it by power points at this point, obviously it's Duke if you beat number 3 and number 4. But if you name a team number 1 at the beginning of the year, a lot of teams don't. Voters don't like to knock them down a notch unless they've proven they deserve to be demoted either by losing or by not winning particularly well. And they won 2 games by over 30 this week, so I think they're probably going to be or not both over 30, but in the 30s. So
hard to
probably going to stay there.
Hard to knock what they've done.
Yeah,
they haven't done anything to.
They haven't done anything to deserve not being number 1. To deserve to be demoted. So
exactly.
But anyway, so we got another week until we see you guys again. But thanks for sticking with us. Appreciate it.